Hello, my name is David Jalali. I am the author of the book Terrorism, the Truth, which is available on Amazon.com. I would like to start by saying that everything that I say in my video talks are intended to increase knowledge and understanding in the society to promote peace, coexistence, and prosperity. I do believe that people can make better choices to improve their own lives and the life of the others in the society and in the world as a bigger place to live through understanding and knowing the facts, not propaganda. My talks are intended to promote peace and prosperity in the world through relaying understanding to people through my knowledge. I am an academic researcher and I've written multiple books and I have multiple university degrees in engineering, business, and I've studied law too. I have been self-employed most of my life and I'm not neither here in an engineering or advisory position in any of the disciplines that I have university degrees and I've studied. I have been researching terrorism and the cause of the world's problem for the past 20 years, and I have decided to write a few books which I have written, and then thank to the internet and the tools that of communication that we have available to us. I have decided to use these communication tools to communicate with people and pass on my knowledge and what I have researched. I do not have any animosity against anybody, and I am not referring, these talks are not against any individual in particular. It's just general knowledge, and if I name somebody, it's just a matter of example. If I name a country, I usually, I am intended towards the government of that country, not the people or the geographic location of that country, because every country is made of three parts: government, people, and geographic characteristics. When I name a country, I refer to the government, not even everybody in the government, but the majority of the government which causes these decisions. Having said that, I would like today to talk about propaganda. But usually when I make these video talks, even either in English or Farsi or other languages, I usually give coronavirus status as of today. Today is December 13, 2020, and I would like to give you the coronavirus status based on the Worldometer website, which I usually check. Coronavirus cases in America are 16,974,656 people have been diagnosed with the disease. Death are 308,662 and 9,879,331 people have recovered. Now, having said that, as of today, December 3rd, December actually 15, 2020, December 15, 2020. I have other English videos which you can refer to and listen to, and in details explains various issues facing humanity as of today, including terrorism and world biggest terrorists and so forth. So I'm not going to talk about that much today. Now I can define terrorism for people who have not watched those videos as defined by FBI dictionary and through my research, UN, and various other sources. Terrorism is defined as use of violence for political aim. Based on that definition, we define terrorism and people who commit more violence for political aim against others, especially people, are biggest terrorists. And violence such as wars, invasion, occupation, discrimination, racism, supported terrorism consists of like propaganda, propose, lie, deception to create chaos, killing, destruction, and toppling democratically elected governments to replace them with the dictators or racist regimes such as Israel and Saudi Arabia. Apartheid, racist, Zionist regime of Israel, which discriminates and kills the natives and replace them based on one religion, supported by United States, and Saudi Arabia, the government that is unelected and beheads people for just objecting to the system of government. Nobody dares to criticize government, and also promotes fundamentalism like ISIS in the region, Al Qaeda and Taliban, and supported with US government weapons. So those are terrorists and the terrorist supporters, biggest one. We've already talked about this extensively in the past, and I don't intend to go into that in this video. I am going to talk about another method which I have noticed by brainstorming people, by basically trying to um, influence societies through soft terrorism. That's propaganda. I'm going to talk about propaganda today. Propaganda is basically defined as um, disseminating lies and misinformation, disinformation to influence people's mind in a society, to mislead them into actions which is contrary to their own interests. For example, we have, at this case, we have Venezuela, we have had, many countries, but right now one of the hottest one is Iran. See, the propaganda to lie is, there are many tools that people can hire propagandists and opportunists to use this opportunity of propaganda to benefit themselves and to benefit the people who hire them, like Secret Service or racist apartheid Zionists led by United States, UK, France, or mostly Western countries like Israel and so forth, and their puppet dictators such as Saudi Arabia, Emirates, because they have money, and but they're not elected. They are dictatorships. So these centers of powers in the West, racist, apartheid, Zionists, basically, who promote racism to build countries and kill the masses to benefit a minority of chosen ones, ruling class. These people look for cells in the countries which tend or try to be independent do not want to be part of the system of exploiting the masses to benefit minority of chosen ones. See, the puppet dictatorships such as Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, if you read the history of these countries, they never had any election, like Egypt and basically Jordan and Morocco, even Libya, which is in a disaster right now, Sudan, and these countries are all unelected governments through coup d'etat, influenced or caused by exterior powers such as United States, France, UK, mostly Western governments. Influencers put puppet governments in their power and they make them allies by giving arms and supporting a minority which is governing the country since there is no election to oppress the majority to build alliance to support their agenda of racism, exploitation, wars, selling more weapons to make more profits. Now, in those countries which are dictatorship, if one country revolts, such as Iran, Iran has the people revolted back in 19 basically oh 05. They had a constitutional monarchy, which is a democracy, right? UK, like UK. But the UK government at the time instigated the coup and toppled the new democracy constitutional monarchy, which was established in Iran in 1920, and replaced them by the general, it's called Reza Khan, who was uneducated, illiterate, and thug, basically, to beat people up, went into the parliament, beating up parliamentarians, killing newspaper journalists, and take control of the country and serve England's UK agenda for 15, 20 years until 1940, which was Iran was invaded by allies to help Russia using the railroad that the British had forced their puppet king to build for them. And then, but during the time, some people were exiled, they got away, and they had another free period of a few years. So they elected parliament, elected Prime Minister Mossadegh, was democratic elected, but the CIA MI6 again toppled them through a coup d'etat and brought another general in power. And until 1979, basically took 80% of the wealth of the country, divided among themselves, where the Iranians didn't even have roads, gas, electricity, food. Almost 46% lived under poverty, with a 30 million population selling 7 million barrels of oil a day at $35 a barrel, which is like $350 today. But the country was basically broke because the money was going. So there was a revolution, 79 happened, Iranians, but this time the people who came to the power were mullahs, basically the religious clerics. And these religious clerics, they mostly the fundamental, the ideology was not immaterial, so it was harder to buy them. They couldn't get along with the West, and they have been able to sustain independence of Iran for 41 years, despite of the fact that the Western racist apartheid Zionism, their puppet dictators, have attacked Iran for 8 years, but Iranians, they defended themselves selling oil for $8 a gallon, and they under the bombardment of U.S. and planes and support for Saddam, Iraq war. And then after that, they basically started building universities, educate people, roads in the city, gas, water, electricity. And the country has now become one advanced, powerful country because it became independent. It watched its own interest. It was now U.S. and racist apartheid Zionist in establishment with the leadership of U.S. and Israel, UK, France, and their puppet dictators in the Middle East. they are opposed to that. They don't want, if Iran is successful to stay independent and grow like this, then their puppet dictators, the nations, the people in their puppet dictators like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, they're all going to say, oh, these people become independent, they resisted the racist apartheid, Zionism with the leadership of US for over 41 years, and they have advanced so much. If their economy gets better, then it sets an example for them. So the Western racist apartheid, Zionism with the leadership of US, UK, and their puppet dictator allies have all joined forces to do everything they can to, even as Pompeo, Dick, also known as Dick, Pompeo said that if Iranians want to leave to eat, they have to listen to us. They have to listen to the racist apartheid, Zionism, a racist, terrorist, slave master, warmonger, woman and baby killer, invader, occupier, warmonger system, which sells weapons to kill masses of people around the world to maximize profit at the death and destruction of the natives. The same way that America has been built on the graves of the over 130 million native Indians by enslaving millions of blacks, and their honor, the honorable statues or the statues of a slave master. The first president was the biggest slave owner in the world. This kind of system is claiming under claim of human right, freedom, and democracy has been putting the world on fire to maximize profit through racism, destruction, and war. One of the tools that they use if they can win through a war, through hard war, like invasion, Afghanistan, invasion, or America invaded Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, look at Vietnam, Korea, but it was not really successful. Maybe it was able to destroy the country, but it was not able to sustain the control of the country. Even right now, it's been kicked out of most of them, and they have to, America's president having 250,000, over 250,000 soldiers in Iraq has to come at night with the plane with the lights off. Doesn't even have can't even provide security for his president. It has to come unannounced in a light and having 250,000 because this type of relationship is the one that I told you, bribe through dictatorship, through deception. This is not going to work out. This is the result. And America has lost over $8 trillion in the process, has achieved nothing. Still, his president can't even go to visit Iraq in daylight. Whereas Iran, the president comes and walks on Baghdad's street during daylight, and Iran doesn't have any troops in Iraq. Now we have to see now if the Western racist apartheid Zionism with the leadership of US cannot win these people, cannot occupy these countries and steal their wealth through military anymore, it has to use another tool. That's called propaganda. So you see what propaganda is? Propaganda is to influence through lies, cheating, deception, influence people's mind, to deceive them, to riot, to cause riot and chaos and terrorism against their own interests. So provide a pretext for the racist apartheid Zionism with the leadership of US to invade that country and install a puppet dictator like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and then so they can oppress their own people. And so the foreigner countries, foreigners in the leadership of racist apartheid, Zionist US and their puppet dictator allies can strengthen their biggest military base in the Middle East called Israel to keep force on top of those people, millions of people, and also steal their wealth with immunity and security. through propaganda to lie. Now, how do they discipline? We explain what propaganda is. And now, what's the intention of the propaganda? Intention of propaganda, we explained that to intention of propaganda is to influence the people's mind, like through Hollywood, through media, dissipating lies and misinformation, and various evil tactics to get people to riot and chaos in a country, to topple the government and create a vacuum so they can install their own puppet dictator in place, like they have done in 1953 Iran, 1920 Iran, 1953 Guatemala, 1953 Egypt, 2015 Egypt, 1973 Chile. I have documented in my book, Terrorism, the Truth, and through my various researchers, over almost 50 countries which elected democratically elected government in a free and fair election as monitored by United Nations and hundreds of news agencies representing having representation, with mass people like 60, 70, up to 80% of the eligible voters participating, like Iran, they elected a government to represent their leadership, and U.S. Racist apartheid Zionism with the leadership of U.S., UK, and Israel and their puppet dictator allies like Saudis, Emirates with their oil dollars, and European Zionism, they cooperated to topple democratically elected governments to replace them with puppet dictators. Now, through some of them, through now lately has been gone more through propaganda. So propaganda intention is to basically to bring a minority to the power, rather than through democracy is the rule of majority, is by government elected by vote of the majority. That's democracy. And when the government that's elected by the vote of the majority, like in Iran, is going to watch the interests of their own country over the interests of foreigners. But if there is through propaganda or through hard coup d'etat, hard coup d'etat like wars, invasion, occupation, or uh, you know, to a country to topple democratically elected government and put a dictatorship like Saudi Arabia in power, then a minority comes to power, which is going to watch their interest over the interest of the majority. So the interest of majority is sacrificed for the interest of minority, supported by a foreign government through propaganda or hard, like war or invasion or occupation, because a minority, for the minority to come to the power, it needs help from a foreign source power. That's why they seek in this country. Some people seek help from outside, like Guaido in Venezuela didn't bring most of the vote, so he asked for United States help because he's a U.S. puppet, and U.S. brings them and said, we think this is the government of the Venezuela. But what does that have to do with the U.S., who's the government of the Venezuela? Because it wants to put that guy in the power to rip off the country, still to watch their own interests. Now, the government of Venezuela, for example, should be elected by Venezuelan people. If any good U.S. wants to do, should provide that kind of security so the people of Venezuela should select their own government, not dictate to them one from outside, like the Saudi Arabia and Emirates, like the way it is. And see, that's an example. So by propaganda, they want to influence the people's mind to deceive them. Now, what are the tools of we want to know what are the tools of propaganda. Now, we define the propaganda, we define the intention of the propaganda to put power minority to rule over the majority, contrary to the democracy. In a democracy, the majority selects government and rules over the minority, but it has to watch their interests. But the interest of minorities are within the interest of majority. That's how it is in a democracy. Now, because that democracy, as we said, is going to watch the interest of the majority of people in the country, and that is going to be on the contrary to the interest of foreign governments. So what the option for foreign government is to support the minority through propaganda or war to rule them over the majority to rip off the country. Now they do a propaganda. Who are the beneficiaries of the propaganda? Beneficiaries of the propaganda, as we said, are the foreign powers who want to take over the country, and some of those minority, which is, as Churchill well said, Sir Winston Churchill, God bless him, he said, the problem with the West Asia, Middle East is that's made of a minority of traders and a majority of ignorant. Very well said. Minority are traders and majority ignorant. So the foreign powers, in order to rip off the country and take over the country, they look for minority of traders to find them, put them out, and then get them and use them as tools, give them money, give them promise of power, promise of future government or future power, money, to persuade them to become the tools of the racist apartheid Zionists with the leadership of US, UK, and their puppet dictators, so they can work against the interest of the majority of the people in their own nations, like Iran, for example. Now, these people, see, United now we have to go to how do the when once these people are identified, how are they hired? Let's say how they first we find out how these people are identified. See, in every country when it becomes independent and has a revolution, there is some sort of freedom. People can demonstrate. But some of the people during demonstrations get excited, young people, and they maybe go put a bank on fire or shoot and kill a government, police, or somebody. Now, if anybody in America demonstrates and kills a police or shoots a bank or something, is called a terrorist. And most likely either will send, if he survives in the incident, either will be deported to Guantanamo Bay as a terrorist, or would go to jail for a long time, maybe even gets hanged if it is proven intentional murder. So this is kind of punishment for somebody like that. But when people in the countries who want to be independent and the majority is ruling like Iran, if somebody does that, then the media of mass deception in the racist apartheid Zionist in countries with the leadership of US, Europe, Israel, and their puppet dictator allies, they fund these news outlets. They go ahead and portray these people as peaceful demonstrators, and then United Nation, basically these countries, their immigration laws has a provision in it. In immigration law, for example, in the US, if somebody is politically oppressed or politically is being prosecuted in one of the country and seeks asylum, then they give him asylum for a couple of years. They give him some money to help start it, and then they try to recruit him to come here and become a propagandist, and they give him salary now for life. They give hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like even you look at the U.S. budget, Congress has like every year since Clinton or since the Iranian Revolution has been allocating like hundreds of millions of dollars officially and probably billions of dollars unofficially to pay for satellite TVs, maybe hundreds of satellite TVs, maybe VOA, which is directly funded by the US government, or BBC funded by the English government, but English collect taxes from people and pays for the BBC. It's the same thing, and America collects people taxes and for VOA, so it's funded by US government. And these outlets, they look for these people, they hire them and pay them money, and then give them scripts of lies and cheats, trying to make the criminals And the murderers who commit murder in these countries who want to be independent, identify them, and propaganda through propaganda and lie portray them as heroes and fighting for democracy, human rights, and freedom. But how can you fight for democracy and freedom and human rights with bullets, sticks, guns, killing and destruction, and putting buses on fire and putting ATMs on fire, putting banks on fire, and destruction and destroying public property? These are the crimes that in United States of America and in the Western countries are punishable by long-term imprisonment, some of them by hanging, by execution. But the same people who are called considered terrorists in America are considered heroes in those countries because they are working against the interests of their own people, and they are cells which can help the agenda of racist apartheid Zionism, which is intended to destroy the humanity, which is a racist regime, regimes of United States, regimes of Israel, European regimes, and their puppet dictator regimes, which are regimes of racism and deprivation and killing, which they like Dracula, they live on blood of the native peasant and deprived indigenous people, such as in America. Look at America's history. As Truman well said, God bless Truman, well said, if you want to know the future, read the history. Reading the history of America, we see America when they conquered America. The Europeans came to this country 500 years ago. There were over 130 million American Indians left. Today, 500 years later, we don't have more than 5 million of them alive. What happened to them? The same whites who discovered America consider forefathers criminals. The same forefathers who considered themselves civilized and considered the natives savages destroyed and killed and through ethnic cleansing over hundreds of millions of native people. America is built on the grave of the American Indians and then claims human rights, democracy, and freedom. Nothing is further from the truth than this claim, as we see it even during the war past 70, 80 years. Look at in Vietnam, look at in Korea, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, in North Africa, in Lebanon, even with Iran right now. Now, whatever America has been doing in those regions, is that promoting democracy, human rights, and freedom, or killing native peasants, women, and babies to steal their wealth and leave them poverty and destruction? Let's be realistic. I mean, propaganda media, U.S. media does not say that. It says that they will go there, provide human right, freedom. But how can you provide freedom, human right, and democracy through battle with a one-ton bomb or through barrel of a gun? You see what I'm saying? Or to raping women, go getting sending bunch of criminal terrorists in those countries, invade those countries, calling them heroes, giving them medals, while they go get drunk and rape women and kids and kills innocent natives to steal their wealth, and they're considered heroes. This is called propaganda. To portray criminal and terrorists as a hero and portray the victim as the terrorists, meaning the people who invade those countries, kill the natives, or portray them as the heroes. This is propaganda. And the portraying the natives who defend their homes and in the process get killed, like even Palestinians, Afghans, Iraqis, they label them as terrorists because they're defending their home. Now, if somebody invades America and we go defend our home, are we considered terrorists or defending? We have a right to defend the home. We, of course, in America, we have the right to defend our home. So why don't they have the right to defend their home? Because there is come propaganda. So tools of propaganda are the terrorists in those countries and the criminals who maybe kill police, kill um, or maybe steal money during a government position, like somebody in Canada spent like $3 billion. He was the head of a central bank in Iran or some higher position. He stole $3 billion, and he came to attend to a seminar in Europe, and then went to the become a, he went to the Canada and asked for asylum in Canada. But Canada saw that this guy has $3 billion bring to that Canada. And Canada doesn't care what he did with it, because Canada is also a racist apartheid Zionist system. So accept his money and give him residency, lives freely now. He's a thief. That if a Canadian had done the same thing and had gone to Iran, then Canada, United Nations resolution, you see all over the world, newspapers, Iran, but the other way is okay. Now, these people who work with VOA or BBC are the same way. A lot of them are a bunch of criminals or bunch of who have done some probably criminal activities or some probably illegal activities, I would say. If not all criminal activities considered is considered illegal activities. That if, to the same standards of the United States, they have destroyed public property in their demonstrations, and they also have a group of demonstrations. They have faked themselves, or some of them even portrayed themselves, maybe faked it, maybe it cheated the Western immigration laws or American immigration laws by portraying themselves incorrectly as a victim of a revenge, or victim of the government oppression, or victim of a government prosecution, uh, intentionally by doing acts, or taking pictures, friends taking their pictures of them, or even having their friends sending them threatening tweets or threatening messages, and document using that as a document to get U.S. visa, or these countries, Western countries visa, to come to these countries. And then United States, when they see, oh, they come and they have pictures and they have all these documents. Now that serves the beneficiary would be United States racist apartheid Zionism system, with the leadership of US, UK, Israel, and their puppet dictators, who looking for tools of propaganda. So they would hire these people, and then what it is their secret service also joins the game, the show, and starts sending them threatening messages. Oh, they're making them more important. So they get more hits, people pay more attention, and that a majority of ignorant, as Churchill well said, the problem with Middle East is minority of traders and majority of ignorant. And that majority of ignorant follows them and comes them, and they have more followers, more followers, more followers, and a bigger audience who is now fooled by the propaganda, which has been fake and false from the beginning, by a very evil, has been built through an evil agenda and a strategy. You see how that works? So the evil people in the world, especially in the West, like the racist apartheid Zionists with the leadership of US, UK, and the puppet dictator allies, they support, in order to make profit for minority at the price of the despair of the majority, will invest their money uh, into hiring these cells, using who they basically abuse immigration laws, and that's in its own is illegal, to bring them to the country because it's to their interest to bring them. And then they pay them salaries like hundreds of thousands of dollars, American taxpayers, to prevent chaos in those countries, to prevent wars, destruction, and create more enemies for America, because all of these actions will have blowback. Iranians, there is animosity between Iran, these wars that happen against America, these Americans who get terror outside the country and killed, is all because of these actions of United States. Why we have all these refugees who come to the board? Because United States basically racist apartheid Zionist system with the leadership of US, UK, Israel, and their puppet dictator allies, Europeans too, some of them. These are old colonialist powers. So these all will support these kind of activities to create wars and then sell more weapons, make more money. Now, in the process, okay, in process, the majority of citizens of these countries get hurt. America, Europe, even in those puppet dictators too. The majority will suffer for minority to make profit. For example, look at Trump, Donald Trump. Donald Trump has filed over 6 bankruptcies. He has like $3 billion wealth. And why did he file bankruptcy? He still has $3 billion wealth because this is the same system supports this kind of characters. That he he built all these hotels, all his wealth by not paying the people who worked for him. Like example, if he got contractors to build, for example, one of them got contractors to build one of his hotels. When he finished, he didn't pay the contractors. They filed suit against him. He filed bankruptcy, and he told them just come and pay 10% of what you work, what if I owe you, for example, 100,000, the court, I only pay you $10,000 because my assets is not worth through fake. So he made his money. He's the president of this country, America. He's supposed to watch the interest of the people. He make his own money by ripping off people. So how is he going to care for the whole ordinary American or for all the Americans? If most of these politicians are like that in America, that's why we have these problems. That's why right now we have almost 20% live under poverty in the richest country in the world. Millions of Americans are sick. Hundreds of thousands of people have died because of disease. Thousands of people die because of disease every day in America. Richest country, America is number one in death, number one in imposing death on other people, and number one in killing his own citizens. So America is number one in that category, but in the process, like less than 40 individuals in America have made over $400 billion profit. And in the process, millions of Americans have lost their home. They don't have money to pay rent. And by the time this pandemic is over, everybody is vaccinated in a year or so. Right now, the banks are holding on foreclosures. Tenants are, owners are holding off on eviction of people. Employees has only been gone for 6 months. They're dropping from the radar. That's why unemployment is coming down. Otherwise, the unemployment is well over 25, 30%. Foreclosure rate is close, probably 50%. People are going to be on the street, and if government, rather than spending billions of dollars, like $1 trillion a year in building bigger bombs to blow up different nations around the world, to just make profit for a minority, a racist, apartheid, Zionist minority, uh, doesn't think of the majority in this country who are suffering, then the country is going to have much problems down the road than it has had so far. Because individuals like Trump don't care. Now, Biden and Harris are opportunistic too. I mean, they probably are psychopath too, but let's see what they do. We got to give everybody the chance. Maybe they come to their senses. Biden is old, he's 78 years old. How long is going to live? But these people, when they get older, maybe they come to their senses. They care for people a little bit, you know. I don't know about that woman, Harris. That is a fake too. It just seems like whichever the wind blows, that's where she goes. Doesn't uses the people as a stepping stone for her own interests. But we have to see. I'm not going to prejudge anybody. I'm going to give them a chance. But I hope they serve American people. I'm an American. I live here. I live here most of my life, not all of it. But what happened since I was a kid? Now, what happens is if American life improves, the country becomes more stable, people life improves, and the crime will come down, the society becomes safer, and we have less crippled people as a result of the war. We have less money to spend on blowing up people around the world, making enemies. So everything would go for better. So a lot of these people you see that come on from these countries, like from Iran, come here and work for VOA or on in YouTube or Twitter or something. You see, they're getting paid to serve the racist apartheid Zionist agenda of destroying the life of majority to benefit minority. They get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars of your tax money to fool you, basically. Now, the reason I know that because I'm a researcher, I've been in university and education. I'm over 6 years old, more than 50 years of that. I've been in education, reading, writing books, and of course, I've been self-employed and I've studied. I study some days, read 8 hours, 4 hours, various resources, books, and do research online. I have come to that conclusion that what these propagandists are are doing to our country is more harm than any good. By propagandists, they're going to create more wars, more destruction, wasting of our resources as we have over $8 trillion in Middle East and look at what we have, nothing. The country America owes over $28 trillion in debt. Excuse me, and the country is broke. Excuse me. Now, having said that, what is the solution? I think the solution is no war. I personally think violence comes from weakness. The person, if you're playing a game of poker, for example, or a chess, the person who loses is the one who gets upset and messes up the game, throws away, or turn the table over. That's what U.S. is, the system racist apartheid Zionist is doing by terroring the scientists in Iran or killing, assassinating the general. This is the true definition of terrorism. What is terrorism? Terrorism is violence against people for political aim. So when America goes and cowardly assassin Iranian general or maybe Zionist Israel, racist apartheid Zionist, sets up to terror Iranian scientists. Now, scientists, they are education academic, they are not even soldiers. That's considered terrorism. So the world biggest terrorist is racist apartheid Zionists with the leadership of US, UK, and their puppet dictators. But through propagandists, the same people who abuse the Western immigration laws to portray themselves as a victim of a political prosecution, which is a lie. Most of them are not even, it's after they get asylum in a few years, they go back and forth. How could they go back and forth if they are victims of prosecution? See, there are a lot of them lies. And some of them come here in order cannot get a job in America because McDonald's or would not even hire them to flip a hamburger or wash dishes because they are not even capable of doing that. So the Western racist apartheid Zionism, the Secret Service or with tax money like VOA or propaganda outlets like BBC and VOA and stuff, they hire these people and give them money and give them make programs for them. All they have to sit there and show these programs and read what they're given to, and they get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what would they go work for McDonald's or someplace? And they basically, as a result of their actions, people die, wars happen, and American people are going to be endangered. American resources is going to be wasted on destruction, where it can be spent on America's infrastructure, American healthcare, education, improve the life of Americans. That money is spent to create chaos and terrorism to benefit a minority who have made billions of dollars even during last year, 40 of them over $400 billion, whereas most Americans are going to be homeless, out of a job. They don't even, over 30 million American children don't even have food to eat at night. They starve. And these people getting paid $100,000 to propaganda against other countries, to sell more, create wars, to sell more weapons. And who benefits? The elite, the ruling class. And these elections you see in America, in reality, is a feud among the ruling class. Americans think they elected somebody. We think we have somebody. This is another propaganda to fool you. Otherwise, Biden or Harris, they watch the interests of the people who give them the biggest money, the corporation, Wall Street. Trump has his own clan he supports. None of them really into, help the Americans' interests. This is the reality. But anyway, we give the benefit of the doubt. At least we have a choice between evil and lesser of the evil. And hopefully Biden will be different. I hope I'm trying to be positive. But how can it be positive? Either a fool or a positive. Because a fine line between a fool and being positive. Now, having said all of that, what's the solution? The solution is that rather than spending all this money on these propagandists, rather than let them abuse the immigration laws of the United States and other Western countries and reward them for violating the laws, to create more criminals and liars and cheaters and more wars and killing and destruction and terrorism, try to spend their money on American healthcare, education, infrastructure, and then stop interfering in those countries and let them elect their own government. And then by respecting the right of other nations, as you expect them to respect our rights to choose, let them choose their own governments and then sit down with their own governments and write a contract which is legal and enforceable. See, a contract has four corners. There is an offerer, there is an offeree, there is a consideration, and there is a promise. Now, right now, currently, this contract is invalid that we have with these puppet dictators, with the nations we call our friends, our puppet dictators. This contract is invalid because it has been obtained under coercion. And according to the laws of the United States of America or most Western countries, or laws of the basically common laws of the world, any contract that's obtained under coercion is illegal. So when we pay money to these propagandists, a bunch of losers who can't even work at McDonald's, not qualified even to work as a McDonald's, to flip hamburger or wash dishes in a restaurant. We pay them American taxpayers, hundreds of thousands of dollars of American taxpayers, to sit and propagate a bunch of lies to create chaos in those countries. So they know some of those countries, people are educated. They know that who caused them, who is paying these people to do this, because they know these people better than we do. And then they become our enemy. As we kill their parents, as we kill their brothers, as we have wars, as we sanction them, they're going to become more enemy and they're going to hurt us. They're going to find a way to hurt us. And this war and killing is not going to end. But it will end if we rather pay them, then leave those countries to elect their own election and deal with the election and have contracts with them, which is legal even to the laws of the United States. The contract that is based on racism and false pretext and through coercion and through deception is illegal contract by any standards, any place in the world. And that illegal contract is going to have only parties that are going to be dissatisfied, and when they find out, they're going to be our enemy number one. The same way that's what's happening right now with some of the countries in the Middle East. Or Americans are safer in the Middle East, or they were 50 years ago, or 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or now. Definitely, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, were much more respect, much more safer in the Middle East than now. But over the time, as they stole their wealth and support these dictators, and mostly grow, right now we deal with them each other through bullets, or guns, or bombs. And it's going to get even worse. Now they have atomic bombs too. Iran has it, Pakistan has it. You're a fool if you think Iran doesn't have atomic bombs. This IEA only is allowed to inspect civilian sites, which is only two or three. Military sites, which have been studying atomics for over 20 years, nobody has any right, has had any access to them. So only a fool would think that Iran doesn't have atomic. So they have it, and if you're used against them, if Israel thinks or America thinks they can use it too. Now they have missiles, they can reach most of Europe and Israel, and maybe in Venezuela, it can reach US too. See where it's getting more dangerous. And a lot of people are stupid, they don't think that. They don't care because they're sending a lot of this elite, the ruling class. Why do you think they send a spaceship to Mars and they try to find a home for themselves? So when the situation push comes to shove and it becomes dangerous and the earth is blown up as a result of their actions, they can go to a new town in Mars or someplace. Or to their bunkers. Trump has bunker under the White House. He goes into his own bunker until the world is blown away, everybody killed, then he's going to come out and still be taking care of his family. And the rest of the world, majority is going to suffer this war. That is the way we are going. Einstein was asked, what do you think the Third World War would look like? Einstein replied, I do not know about the Third World War, but I can tell you the Fourth World War people have to fight with a stick. So when Einstein was asked, what do you think the Third World War would look like? He said, I do not know about the Third World War, but I can tell you, if Third World War happens, in the Fourth World War, people will have to fight with a stick. Means nothing is left. That is the direction we are going, the way it is going right now. As long as a bunch of idiots, retards like Trump is our leader, or Pompeo. This guy Pompeo is a his figure, his body is like a gorilla body, but his brain is like a chicken shed brain. He doesn't have brain. If you get the IQ from this guy is stupid. He got a bunch of racist, apartheid, Zionists around him, and a bunch of puppet dictators, and I think he can rule the world like that. And there are 8 billion population people live in the world. You cannot, with a few puppet dictator government, oppress those people forever. You may be able to fool some people for some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people for all the time. The solution is democracy, real democracy, not this lie the United States racist apartheid Zionists and with the leadership of US, UK, and their Zionist allies and their puppet dictators are propagating. How can the world promote democracy, freedom, and human rights? Having Saudi Arabia, who's never had an elected government, who beheads his own people just for criticizing government, who supports ISIS, Al Qaeda, or Taliban, who believe in one religion. Actually, this is the only commonality they have with Israel. Israel believes in one religion too. That's why they're good friends. But there is a freedom of religion in Iran, but the propaganda here turns it the other way around. You know, how can these people promote democracy, human rights, and freedom around the world? They are just bunch of propagandists, opportunists, who want to profit from the ignorance of the majority of the people through their propaganda. The people who come and say, in Iran, for example, the guy goes and butcher somebody with a knife in a demonstration, and then because he's a wrestler, used to be a wrestler, they say he's a hero, he was a champion, and nobody says that he killed 2 people from the back with a knife. He commits murder. Murder is against the law any place you go. Intentional murder is first degree. You get hanged most places. In America, even gets hanged. Like 10 to 20 people probably in America get hanged every day. Not every day, every year, annually. Yearly, annually. There are some years in America 20 people get hanged. In Saudi Arabia, in every day, if you get caught, their head get beheaded. Nobody says anything about this. Now a criminal goes with a knife, kills 2 people, and he used to be ex wrestler. And then this VOA and BBC with American taxpayers, they pay these propagandists who are liars, cheaters, runaways, killers, criminals themselves, and they have lied to the immigration probably to get deceive them again to get the visa come here. Now they are deceiving our government without, and government pays them our tax money to see and propaganda to deceive those more people in other countries. See, deception, paid money to deceive through propaganda. That's what's happening. And they want to portray these criminals as a hero. Or some other guy, he comes in here, this France Secret Service, Zionist, US, CIA, MI6, all of these people, give him money, give him open a TV, even Saudi Arabia's MBS gives them money, or open a TV or a YouTube channel. They provide, help him money for his expenses, to provide videos to teach people, demonstrators, for example, because the gasoline price went up in Iran, or maybe the people demonstrate because the gas or some food price some went up too much. People have, because it's a democracy in Iran, people have a right to demonstrate and demonstrate. But it teaches, in demonstrations, people got excited. If somebody comes and sits in a video on YouTube and tells people how, show them how to make cocktail Molotov, there's and bombs and tools to kill police and blow up banks, or blow up public establishments, or buses or railroads and stuff. That is terrorist. That guy should be prosecuted, and if he has caused killing of some people, he should be hanged. He should be at least for life in jail. He shouldn't be given money to open a TV and a YouTube channel and teach people terrorism. Now, if the same guy goes sits in Iran or some other third country, and then opens a YouTube channel and then teach Americans who go to demonstrations how to make bombs, how to persuade them to attack government establishment, private facilities, banks, ATMs, buses, railroads, and things like that, so what would the American government would do? How do we feel about this guy? We feel that guy is terrorist, and it should be terrorist all over the world. Anybody who promotes violence against people is terrorist. He should be punished. He shouldn't be rewarded by giving him money. These propagandists that United States government, racist, apartheid, Zionist governments, with the leadership of US, Israel, European, and their puppet dictator governments, gives them money, radio, television, to sit and propagate, portraying a criminal terrorist who fled Iran as a hero, or in Iran has been arrested and prosecuted and punished according to the law, to portray him as a hero. These people are terrorists too. They're supporting terrorism and with American taxpayers. So what do you expect? Now, if anybody in those other countries does that, we consider them terrorists. Then why don't we consider this guy terrorist? Why do we consider this guy hero? Why does our government pays our money to these propagandists who McDonald's won't even hire them to flip hamburgers, to sit here and use our tax money, lie and cheat to portray criminals as heroes? Because they want, people in the government want to benefit minority of racist apartheid Zionists at the price and despair of the majority of ignorant people who don't know about this, because they either have been subject to propaganda, which is US media. The book written by Noam Chomsky in 1988 is called Manufacturing Consent. You think what media tells you is the truth? No, that's a lie. Even watch the news. The news, world news, even you watch, there is a dog falls into a well. You see helicopter comes, fireman comes, they hug the dog, they nourish the dog, which is very good. I'm not saying I love animals. It's good that we care for animals. But at the same time, Hundreds of thousands of people have been dying in Yemen with the U.S. bombs by U.S. puppet dictator allies like Saudi Emirate and stuff. And hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are being massacred every day. They've been demolished, their homes, women, kids killed in Palestine by the racist apartheid Zionist regime of Israel, which is U.S. puppet, U.S. ally. And then hundreds of millions of other people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, North Africa are being killed, raped. 500 or 500,000 people killed in Syria by by racist apartheid Zionist arms provided to terrorists like ISIS, who have been supported and created by their allies, Saudi Arabia and Emirates and Qatar and so forth. And then when they get injured, then they've been taken to Israel, to their hospitals to treat them, and then send them back to the battlefront to kill 500,000 Syrians. And we don't hear that on the news. Like they call NPR. Somebody in Twitter was saying NPR said that NPR means National Propaganda Radio. That's APR. It's funded by racist apartheid Zionists. I mean, that's they're supposed to be public radio. That is propaganda radio. It's not public radio. And then the mainstream media, such channels, ABC, those are for corporate media. They're for money. It doesn't make money that they're going to show you American weapons killing millions of kids and poor people in Yemen, hundreds of thousands, 100,000 around the world, destruction and killed by these weapons. It doesn't make them money. What makes them money when those people die and these weapons are sold to kill them, and the profit comes to these corporations. So they show you, they talk about the underwear of this actress or how many boyfriends this actress have. They glorify the Oscar reward or Emmy award stop because or football, bunch of gladiators, or start killing each other on a battlefield to entertain people. Because that makes money. The advertisement they sell is a minute for $30 million. So money is more important than people's life. And that is going to only benefit the minority, we told you. The 40 people made $400 billion last year. Over 300,000 Americans have died. Millions are sick. And believe me, the result of this will show in the next 2 and 3 years is going to be much worse. And so all these people suffer because the minority of racist apartheid Zionists can make their billions. So the main mainstream media in the Western racist apartheid Zionist countries will not show you the truth. You have to go research it yourself. You have to go study, go back to school. Every night drinking wine and smoking that, maybe it's good sometimes. I don't know, but I personally think at least even spend at least an hour of our day to some reading and research is going to help us as a human, and it's going to help our kind. I want the peace and prosperity not only in America, all over the world. As Einstein well said, you cannot keep peace by force. You can keep peace by understanding. And Martin Luther King well said, number one enemy of human is sincere ignorance and conscious stupidity. And Shakespeare says ignorance is dark. So I'm trying to fight the ignorance by giving knowledge for peace, promote peace. Abraham Lincoln says a man can handle diversity, but to know the true character of a man give him power. Now, unfortunately, the people who have power in our government use that power to kill majority, to destroy majority's life, to benefit a minority of their own clan and themselves, like Trump, as we see it. I mean, research it, you will see it. And as Truman well said, to know the future, read the history. So, and read the history, we see what's going on. So I hope I have been able to enlighten some people than rather than wasting our tax money paying these propagandists promote propaganda to portray criminal terrorists as heroes, to deceive people and waste our resources. We should spend that money on infrastructure, our country, in healthcare, in education. That would benefit every American more. And when every American is benefited more, has better life, I will have a better life because I live here. I live among them. If people around me are wealthier, are healthier, they are happier, they have education that they can afford up to 4 year college. They don't have to pay. Right now, if you go get a college degree, you owe hundreds of thousands of dollars. You have to work the rest of your life, just make payments for your loans you get to go to school. What kind of education is that? And then we give money to these propagandists to bullshit, to create war, so some people can sell more weapons and make for more profit, and we go deeper in debt. That is what I'm trying to prevent. I wish everybody health and happiness. Stay away from coronavirus, please. Wear a mask a few more months until the vaccine comes. And hopefully, the future would be brighter than it is in a few years. Thank you very much, and God bless you.